You have to say Israel is awesome and good. Otherwise, anything short of saying Israel is great means that you want Jews to be burned alive. Is a psychotic statement, and I'm repeating myself over and over again. This is not about, for some people that are in media, organized protests. There are always agents of propaganda that infiltrate these protest movements and engage in incredibly violent acts. Okay, one of the greatest examples of this was the Jiffy Lube that burned down in one of the first ever Black Lives Matter protests. The person who did that was a white supremacist. Okay, an agent provocateur, a white supremacist that looked like a cop that they identified him, but they never actually caught him, if I remember. Or it's not Jiffy Lube, sorry, AutoZone. It was the AutoZone. It was the umbrella guy, you remember? At the time I covered it and I said, this looks very suspicious. This looks like a person who is there as an agent provocateur, explaining what agent provocateurs are. One of the biggest problems and divisive tenets of being pro-Palestine versus pro-Israel is that the acts like these are used to cement both sides, and in a weird way, they can be twisted in both of those ways. More anti-Semitic equals pro-Israel people will even be more sure in the need of a Jewish state, and will also compel pro-Palestine people to be even more sure that Israel's actions contribute to more anti-Semitism globally. Yeah, I mean, I've talked about this extensively as well, obviously. Like, Israeli officials don't care about anti-Semitism. They actually like when anti-Semitism happens in the West. That is the reason why they have no issue collaborating with like active anti-Semitic politicians, because if anti-Semitism increases in the West, Jews in diaspora will feel more terrified and will want to work with Israel and defend Israel and actively keep sending support to Israel, even if they don't live in Israel. And the best possible outcome, obviously, would be for people to flee the West, Jews to flee the West and go to Israel directly and live there. But if they won't do that, then they will at least defend Israel. Anyway, umbrella guy was a St. Paul police officer. The AutoZone was across the street from where I worked, which also burned down, lol. No, the umbrella guy was a police officer. The other guy was a white supremacist, I think. I'm pretty sure there was a white supremacist dude that like threw the first brick through the AutoZone. Ultimately, none of this changes the dynamic on the ground for Palestinians. There's still a genocide going on, okay? The focus on issues like this obviously are as a direct consequence of people that caring more about what happens in their own backyard and the fears that they have. This leans perfectly into said fears that people have about like the crazy, scary Muslims doing in the middle of Aurora, Colorado. Like that's all of a sudden. That's just in your backyard. You care more about that, obviously, than you do about whatever's going on over there in Gaza, right? The other secondary consequence, of course, is to hit the Israel is under attack. Israel and Israel defenders are under attack, and in this circumstance, it is valid as far as a bunch of people that were victimized unjustly by some insane person. And ultimately, all that does is move the attention away from, and the focus away from Israel's actions. Alonzo responds to Eyal, who said, you know what we never see? Pro-Israelis violently attacking Palestinians in the United States. I keep hearing Zionists are violent, yet only one side continuously perpetrates heinous acts, which of course is obviously an incredibly stupid thing to say. U.S. woman indicted for attempt to drown 3-year-old Palestinian American girl, stabbed 26 times, a 6-year-old Palestinian child killed, and his mother injured in a hate crime. After chemical attack on pro-Palestine students, Colombia won't back down. Colombia protected the person who actually pepper sprayed or the pro-Palestinian students in Columbia campus. Obviously, there's the Palestinian student that was shot in Vermont and is paralyzed from the chest down. All of those instances. Also, the encampments that Zionists attacked in UCLA. That was another crazy instance. There's the guy in Miami who shot the 2 Israelis who he thought were Palestinian. I don't think Eyal is this ignorant, says Alonzo. I do think he's malicious and could not care less about the 6-year-old Palestinian kid stabbed to death, or even the 2 Jewish guys assassinated, not assassinated, but attempted, an attempted assassination of 2 Israeli Jews because the other American Florida Jewish guy thought that they were fucking Palestinian. Ironically enough, the Israeli Jews also thought the person who was shooting at them was also Palestinian. That story did not even make a blip in the fucking media cycle because it could not be used. And the only reason why there was any coverage whatsoever is because initially they thought it was a hate crime. So they covered it, and then they very quickly found out that both the perpetrator and the victims were Jewish. Another instance that perfectly proves the point that if you are pro-Palestine in any capacity, you are unimportant and you will never be covered is if there is an Israeli Jewish person that goes into a pro-Palestinian protest and gets beaten up, an Israeli Jewish woman with an Israeli passport that goes into a pro-Palestinian protest and gets beaten up, beaten and bloodied, okay? People are like throwing bricks at her. These pro-Palestinian protesters throwing bricks at her. That dominates discourse. This is a heinous act of violence. Except that did happen. But it wasn't actually an Israeli Jewish woman going to a pro-Palestinian protest. It was an Israeli Jewish woman that was an anti-Zionist that went to Itamar Ben-Gvir's speaking engagement and protested said speaking engagement and was brutalized by Orthodox Jews in America who were Itamar Ben-Gvir fans. That is the reason why you never actually heard about this story at all. This happened in New York City. So even if you are an Israeli passport holding dual citizen who is both Israeli and American, and you go and you protest a fascist speaking engagement on U.S. soil, and the people that are there, the little fascist supporters are there beating the shit out of you, it doesn't actually turn into a story that drives the media discourse. Yeah, they threw a rock at her head. The double standard is glaring. Anyway, none of this is going to stop me from saying what I believe, even if at times you don't agree with what I'm saying. Maybe you have fucking more radical opinions than myself or whatever. I don't give a shit, okay?
Suspect said not only free Palestine yesterday, but he said in Israel. I mean, the state charges are one thing, but federal terrorism charges are probably going to happen as well. Meanwhile, you have CNN saying, you had some of their analysts and then Andrew McCabe getting on air as this is happening saying, why is the FBI saying there are terrorism charges here? Why are they saying it's an act of terror? Well, the guy clearly said that he was targeting a certain group. He wanted to end the Jewish state. This is why they are saying, not only did the FBI say this, but the AG has said this, the governor has said it as well. And many people are wondering, when are we going to put an end to this? The same thing that he's saying, people are saying out on the streets, on college campuses, every single day.
Yeah, the Israeli ambassador to the UN, Danny Danon, says this is not a political protester. This is a terrorist. You had one witness, Alex Osante. He was eating lunch inside and he heard the screams outside, so he went out to help the victims. He said the attacker was vicious and aggressive with his Molotov cocktail weapons, but it seemed like a couple of others were actually on his side, arguing for him, which didn't make sense. Hats off to the officers who made it there quickly so that they could arrest him. Dan Bongino, Dan Bongino, the FBI number 2 there, said the leadership team is there on the ground with the FBI. The National Counterterrorism Center is there, according to Tulsi Gabbard, and local law enforcement is also investigating.
But here's the thing. Here illegally. Asked for asylum during the Biden years. They said no, but he kicked it out. Then somehow he gets a work visa to stay. Does anyone interview these people
But Brian, it expired in March.
Yeah.
So he shouldn't be here.
Shouldn't have been extended to begin with. This is why Tom Homan and what the military is doing at the border and our great Border Patrol is doing matters as much, too. We got to get these people who are breaking our laws. Stop telling me they belong in the community and they're one of us. They go to the blue states, the blue cities, where they can thrive, and in this case, attack.
Not just that, Brian, what Marco Rubio is doing with the visas as well at the State Department. If you don't love this country, if you're going to cause harm to people in this country, you got to go. Yeah. Let's bring in former Deputy Envoy Combat and Anti-Semitism, Eli Kohanim, onto the program. Eli, we want to get your general reactions to what's happening here, but a few questions about what's happening when it comes to the protest there. They're saying from the river to the sea. They're saying a global intifada, and they're saying free Palestine. What does that mean? Because these same people that are committing these acts of terrorism are saying those same chants.
Lawrence, that's an excellent question, and I think that this latest heinous terror attack against Jewish Americans by this foreign national who burned Jews alive yesterday has to be a wake-up call for every American. I call upon all Americans to now stand up with your Jewish neighbors and friends and say enough is enough. We need to face the facts that this so-called Free Palestine movement is in fact a pro-terror movement, and we need to draw the line in the sand. There can be no longer any tolerance for this movement.
Okay, sure. Like, what an insane fucking statement, dude. Yeah. Nope, no more. Please, you have to stop. You have to stop allowing people from saying Free Palestine or that like Israel is doing a genocide. You know what I mean? You have to. You have to say Israel is awesome and good. Otherwise, anything short of saying Israel is great means that you want Jews to be burned alive is a psychotic fucking statement. And I'm repeating myself over and over again. This is not about, for some people that are in media, sure, they think this is a great way to defend Jewish people, right? For many, it's about defending the state of Israel. But for the administration, this has nothing to do with defending Israel and nothing to do with, even less to do with defending Jews, and everything to do with eroding the First Amendment, shredding free speech, eroding it by continuing along the same state trajectory that accelerated state surveillance in the aftermath of 9/11. Okay? This is precisely what's going on, and so many people do not understand how dangerous this is. If you think even for a fucking moment that Trump cares about Jewish people, you are the biggest delusional asshole on the fucking planet. Okay? Trump does not give a singular solitary shit about Jewish people. He does not care. There are an endless amount of pro-Israeli groups that have masqueraded as Jewish advocacy groups, that has basically masqueraded as Jewish advocacy groups that actively have a lot of speaking space and a lot of influence in liberal circles, both in mainstream media and in liberal circles in general. Trump recognizes, or at least Trump's advisors recognize, the influence and power that these groups have. Their goal is to undermine the First Amendment. Their goal is to undermine free speech. And that is the reason why they're doing this by the point of immigrant enforcement, first and foremost, because they think this is the most successful, the easiest route into undermining First Amendment protection. And they're using the existing network of influence of Jewish advocacy groups that are actually Israel advocacy groups to do this, to move alongside the guidelines that Project Esther outlined. Okay, that's it.
Which has left two Jews dead 10 days, and now again a Jew, a Holocaust.
What is this? This isn't a dishonest representation of the view of the Western Jewish diaspora. Many do think Free Palestine represents the same danger of a mentally unwell man with a flamethrower. The ADL reflects faithfully the opinion of large amounts of the diaspora, and it's incredibly dangerous to ignore this. Oh, dude. First of all, even that is not completely correct. And even if it was, it still doesn't change the reality. Who gives a fuck? Not only are you not correct, but also, even if you were, who gives a fuck? Like, what do you mean? If 100% of Jews in diaspora felt this way, which obviously is not the fucking case, okay, that doesn't change the dynamic at all. What do you mean it's dangerous to fucking ignore this? Why? People who are quick to say, oh, you're doing Jewish exceptionalism, will unironically do that themselves, okay? Like, that wouldn't all of a sudden make it the truth. You know what I mean? Also, Jews in diaspora is a statement that I find frustrating, even though I sometimes accidentally apply it as well. These are not Jews in diaspora. These are American Jews. Okay? What the fuck? They're not living in diaspora, even though the Jewish nation state is Israel and they should be in Israel. Like, no, these are dudes who have been living here for fucking hundreds of years, or families that have been living here for hundreds of fucking years. They're just as American as every single person. It's not like they were born in fucking, all Jews are born in Israel. Then they just like come to the United States of America. What the fuck are we talking about? They're Americans. And ultimately, it still has nothing to do with Judaism. It is a weaponization. It is reactionary thought, Islamophobia, and a fuck ton of social conditioning that comes from Zionist groups early on. And in spite of that, this generation of Jews, like young Jews in America, have similar opinions to the other non-Jewish groups in the country. This is a generational divide.
A survivor is burned alive on American soil. This is just not America. This is not our values. And to that point, you know, as you just mentioned, Mohammed Salman, the perpetrator, is an Egyptian national. He was let into our country by the Biden administration. And so the Biden administration's failed immigration policies are not victimless. In this case, it is Jewish Americans who are the victims. But let me remind everything, the hatred that starts with the Jews never ends with the Jews. And so truly all Americans are potential victims for these failed immigration policies.
Ellie, I've interviewed the lawyers for the hostage families. They have got...
It's so funny that a chatter said Nazis love you now. America First Post News. This is a Nazi outlet. America First Post News. Okay, post after ADL CEO Jonathan Greenblatt called for his deplatforming, Hasan Piker has been suspended from Twitch. And half of these motherfuckers are literally saying, like, these guys are anti-Semitic. Okay? Obviously. They're insanely anti-Semitic. They're fucking Nazis. And they're celebrating the ADL in the most anti-Semitic ways possible. I wonder why. I wonder why the fucking neo-Nazi followers here are going rare... I guess like this is they're saying like rare Jew win or something, like Juicebox knows. I assume he's saying Jews. They're literally siding with the fucking ADL. Okay, do you understand? Yeah, W. Like, think about that, dude. And IG just allows this. Of course, IG allows this. Oh,
got a direct line between Iran, the Hamas, and these college kids on campus who are a lot of times in their late 20s and 30s. Like Mahmoud Khalil is 30 and graduated from graduate school. They don't belong here. What are you doing? Number two is this has got to be unwound. We can't just say, oh, this crazy guy came to New York, did something, came to D.C. or blew up Josh Shapiro's house.
I'm anti-Semitic, but I hate terrorists more. Release the hostages and surrender. If that pissant Hasan says free Palestine one more time on stream, he should be jailed. Wait, lol, why is a fascist anti-Semite like yourself so invested in censoring pro-Palestine speech? Interesting. Dude, I see this all the time on Twitter, man. These people literally hate Jews, okay? They are neo-Nazis, but they hate me more, surprisingly enough. Actually, not surprisingly, unsurprisingly. You want to know why? Because I'm not fucking anti-Semitic. If I was, they would love me. I'm catching it from fucking both ends here. Groups that are supposed to be tasked with combating anti-Semitism coming out and fucking actively calling for my deplatforming, and the neo-Nazis that otherwise hate Jews aligning with the fucking ADL. Yo, Hasan, do you think do you think Ye will ever go back to normal? I don't know. Ugh. Zaid Jelani says, the Hasbara obsession with protesters is odd to me because I think 0% of change in American public opinion about Israel has to do with the protest. Basically, Americans are watching Israeli ministers say they want to destroy Gaza and starve Palestinians and then do it. If Hasbara could figure out a way to repeal the First Amendment and then ban all Israeli speech on American internet, that might do it. Short of that, I don't think any level of censorship will reverse this trend. The number one thing Israelis could do to improve the image of Israelis is to change Israeli conduct. Actually, the number 1 to number 100 things, because nothing else will make any difference whatsoever. This is also correct. Like, this is it. I don't think people who are pro-Israel understand that. Like, They just don't. They don't understand it at all. They don't give a shit. They're like, shut the fuck up. It's so arrogant, too. It's so unimaginably entitled. It's so unimaginably arrogant. It's so ridiculous where it's just like, no, we get to say babies are my enemy, and then we get to kill babies. And then in the Western world, if you cover that and you go, this is insane. If you cover that and you go, this is a fucking insane thing to say. This is Hitlerian. All of a sudden, you're the #1 anti-Semite and you need to be silenced. It's like, bro, what are you doing? We are completely just liberal media is completely dropping the ball on this too. Like their coverage on this stuff is so ass. Like, look at this, dude. Look at this shit. Lindsey Graham, I hope Greta and her friends can swim. Greta Thunberg set sail with Gaza flotilla that aims to break the Israeli naval blockade to offer aid to the starving Palestinians. Israel shot the last ship off the coast of Malta, thousands of miles away from the Israeli coastline. It didn't even make a blip in mainstream media. They shot the last flotilla ship off of the coast of Malta. Okay? And now you have American politicians saying, I hope Israel shoots your fucking ship and you drown in the water. This is not the first time that Israel has done this. There was another humanitarian aid flotilla, Mavi Marmara, that was trying to bring in aid to the Palestinians all the way back in, I believe, like 2013 or 2014. Israel shot that one, shot that ship, that humanitarian aid ship, and then killed a bunch of people in it. Killed a bunch of humanitarian activists in the ship. 2011, 2010? No, it wasn't 10 years ago. Mavi Marmara was before then.
And then just burn somebody alive in Boulder, Colorado. These are just crazy people. There is direct links. That's right. And we're good at doing that. Ever since Al-Qaeda and 9/11, we've pulled back on that. But we got to get back to that right now and start identifying the direct line to Gaza and Iran.
Exactly right, Brian. And look, this is part of what the Trump administration is doing in the short time that President Trump and the admin is now back in office. So what you're pointing to, Brian, is indeed the links between what's happening here on U.S. soil and foreign countries like the Islamic Republic of Iran. Look, under Biden...
Dude, is so wild. We need to bring back Islamophobia, like as though it went away. You know, we've been too quiet about these fucking Muslims in our ranks. We got to bring it back in a big way. Incredible stuff. Oh my Lord.
And the DNI at that time Avril Lavigne came on the air and said that Iran was in fact funding some of the pro-terror, pro-Hamas movement on our campuses, and that perhaps unbeknownst to our American students, they were actually in touch with Iranian agents. So yes, this is absolutely correct that we've got foreign countries that are funding, perhaps organizing some of this activity.
They told the hostages that.
Yes.
They told him that in the tunnels.
That's right.
While they're being held, he says, we have links and we have supporters in American.
This, by the way, was one of the most insane lawsuits that were launched by some of the Israeli hostages that were freed that work with like all these apartheid defense league style Israel advocacy groups. It is so nutty to me that is unironically something that these guys are openly entertaining, and no one turns around and makes fun of them. You know, no one turns around and goes, this is the dumbest fucking thing I've ever heard in my entire life. Yeah, here is Tim Barker, who's an OSINT guy, who's a good OSINT guy. He said, I went back and looked up Hasan Nahan's initial response to 10-7. His statement is one that any decent person could easily co-sign. I am not going to be one of those people that says like, oh, they're settlers. They deserve the violence. They deserve getting shot in the street. No, nobody deserves that, Piker said of the Israeli victims before speaking at length about what he described as the inevitability of Hamas's October 7 attack, blaming it on Israel's treatment of Palestinians in Gaza. This has been my fucking statement. It is objectively a correct statement. Oh, the idea that like there are people who are entertaining the notion that like Hamas is actually funding the protests or has like a direct line of communication with the fucking American college campus protesters is one of the most insane things I've ever heard in my entire fucking life. That was from the Jewish Insider article, by the way, that was calling me anti-Semitic. Despite Hasan's well-documented record of anti-Semitic hate, prominent journalists and liberal podcasts have frequented his online show. Oy, oy, oy. Piker problems. From Gabby Deutsch from December 4th. she also recently had this to say. Hasan Piker is now saying the quiet part out loud, that Hamas is good, actually. This streamer has 2.9 million followers on Twitch and major profiles on New York Times, CNN, NBC, Vox, Rolling Stone, et al. All seeking his wisdom on how DEM should reach young people. Is this how? I said, there is no comparison between Israel and Hamas. One is a militant resistance comprised of orphan soldiers born into a 77-year occupation. The other is an ethno-religious supremacist apartheid state with nukes doing a genocide backed by the USA. What did I say here that is wrong? First of all, this is just a factual statement. If you consider this factual statement to mean, to imply that Hamas is good, then that's on you. You don't like the truth. This is the objective truth. It just doesn't look good for Israel. And that is precisely the reason why you're making a big fuss about it. That's it. This is at the heart of all of the, oh, this guy is terrorist. This guy is pro-terrorism. This is where all of the argument ends and begins. Okay? That's all this is. Some examples, they aren't hard to find. Here's USA Today columnist opting not to consider concerns about anti-Semitism from Piker. Nothing to see here, basically. And if there is, he wouldn't have tens of thousands of people listening to him daily if his ideas weren't popular. He tweeted more about me than he tweeted about his own district, Piker said, noting that Torres comes from the poorest congressional district in the nation. That's crazy. That's not normal. That isn't the only skirmish he's had with Democrats. In November 2024, Representative Richie Torres, D of New York, called on Twitch to investigate Piker for using anti-Semitic rhetoric. Piker said the reaction was unwarranted and in bad faith. He also gets a lot of heat from the right. Fox News aired a segment calling out his pro-Hamas radical anti-Semitic views, lamenting that he has any influence. Despite the people who perceive him as too extreme, it's clear he's doing something right. He wouldn't have tens of thousands of people listening to him daily if his ideas weren't popular. I think a lot of people, if they were truly invested in combating anti-Semitism, would recognize I am one of their greatest fucking allies. But they are so goddamn invested in defending Israel that they just can't comprehend that someone could hate Israel and not be anti-Semitic in the process. That's it. You just don't like that I'm correctly calling out Israel for being correctly saying that Israel is an apartheid state that is doing an ethnic cleansing campaign. That's it. You don't like that. You don't fucking like that. It's annoying to keep tweeting about this, but when a person continuously named by serious people as someone who the Democratic Party should pay attention to now says Hamas are the good guys in the conflict, it matters. Remember, I didn't even fucking say that. You did. Like, I am just as critical of Saudi Arabia as I am of Israel, okay? On numerous fronts. Nobody's going to fucking turn around and be like, Hasan is a dangerous Islamophobe for criticizing the Muslim nation of Saudi Arabia. That's where Mecca is. That's where Medina is. It is the most important nation for Islam. Nobody says that. And if someone were to say that, I would laugh at them, okay? It's so fucking stupid. Elise Stefanik, the loudest cheerleader for the ongoing mass murder of the Palestinian people, responded to the attack on Israel supporters in Boulder by calling for CARE, a Muslim civil rights group that defends Muslim Americans from discrimination and violence, to be designated as a terrorist organization. Fantastic. Amazing. Everybody has their own pet project, their own personal project for like undermining and further shitting on Muslims. Ryan Grimm post, by the way, this is from the Guardian. 4 further school buildings have been marked as potential targets to be bombed by the IDF, according to the sources. The locations identified as potential targets include 4 schools, Halawa, Al-Rafai, Nusiba, and Halima Saadia. All 4 are in or near Jabalia in the north of Gaza. Insane. Insane. Speaking of insanity and people that are trying to fucking distance themselves now that they are no longer in power from all of the violence that unfolded, all of the violence that they defended, by the way, who should be charged as war criminals, Matt Miller. Matt Miller had the audacity to say, without a doubt, former Biden official says he believes Israel has committed war crimes in Gaza. I said, you directly helped cover for those war crimes so we could keep sending more munitions to do new crimes with.